Yo guys, today we're going to watch a video about how a gacha created its own language, and I will assume this is about Arknights. So yeah, let's watch this.
Aspects of world building. One of the aspects of world building that I personally consider to be one of the greatest achievements for any world builder is creating a fictional language.
Which can say.
Language, whether it be spoken, written, or both, is incredibly complex and fascinating. It serves as one of the fundamental bases for us humans being a social species. It's discussed and valued in both an artistic perspective as well as a scientific perspective. And it's seen as one of the strongest identifiers of a unique culture. Many cultures taking great pride in their language and using it as a way to keep their connection with their culture. When one starts to consider the sheer complexity of language and all the nuances that come with determining how a society facilitates communication within a determined structure of sound and visuals, it becomes apparent why coming up with a fictional language, even if it is based on pre-existing languages, should be appreciated. It is a testament to the dedication that world builders have towards creating their unique and immersive worlds for their audience to experience. So, as fictional languages are seen as a mark of dedication and quality from the creators of a piece of media, what if there is a genre of video games that aren't
Are they just going to show me this? This blank image?
particularly perceived for their deep world building, yet a lot of them have gone out of their way to create their own fictional languages within their own lore?
Very hard to do it.
We're seeing more and more gacha games come out with their own deep immersive worlds, which include many fictional cultural elements such as languages. Many of these fictional languages feature visually unique scripts that add depth within their worlds. However, there is one custom language, in particular from a gacha game, ARKNIGHTS, that I find particularly fascinating. A fictional language that ARKNIGHTS players have experienced from the very beginning, yet only till recently have we been able to gain a better understanding of it.
Okay.
Not only is it fascinating because of its complex linguistic characteristics, but more relevant to me is its unique written characters, their design, and what the characters can tell us about a culture and their language. ARKNIGHTS actually has multiple fictional languages pertaining to different cultures within its story. However, the particular fictional language that we will be looking at in this video is one of ARKNIGHTS' oldest languages, both within the lore of the game as well as in the real-world age of ARKNIGHTS.
Oh, okay.
We don't have an officially confirmed name for this language as of now. However, throughout the video, we will refer to this language as Sarkaz.
Sarkaz, okay.
Sarkaz is said to be the oldest language within the lore of ARKNIGHTS, being created by the earliest inhabitants of Terra, the Tikaz.
Okay.
The language would be passed down to the descendants of the Tikaz, the Sarkaz, who still use the spoken and written language of Sarkaz. Now, in this video, I will be covering only the written Sarkaz language, primarily the visual look of the written language. Other linguistic aspects of Sarkaz, such as its syntax or lexicon, are way out of my field of expertise, and there are other fantastic ARKNIGHTS community members who are much more qualified to share the fascinating intricacies of the Sarkaz language.
I like the song.
Our first experience as players of the written language of what we would now know as Sarkaz was with one of the game's main characters, Amiya. Towards the end of episode 8 of the main story, Amiya unlocks the ability to change her class from being a caster to a guard.
Yeah.
Within the menu to change her class, a pop-up appears.
Oh yeah, this one. Yeah, I remember this. Yeah.
This pop-up contains a string of geometric symbols, along with two other symbols below it. While the two symbols below were relatively easy to deduce as being the yes or no option buttons, the geometric symbols were more of a mystery. Community members started theorizing on what the symbols could mean, however, with no definitive means of correlating
I was it is confirmed, but I don't know.
The symbols with any understood language, there was always going to be some amount of uncertainty in the accuracy of these theorized translations. The Rosetta Stone is a granodiorite stele that was discovered in 1799 during the Napoleonic campaign in Egypt.
What the hell?
The stone itself contained parallel script in 3 different texts. ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics and Demotic, as well as ancient Greek.
Oh, ancient Greek
It was
as
by
well.
the 4th and 5th centuries CE, many of the ancient Egyptian scripts were replaced by the Coptic alphabet, leading to the extinction of the ancient Egyptian scripts. However, with the discovery of the Rosetta Stone, the inclusion of ancient Greek, which was still understood, gave
I think this is the ancient one. Okay, so there's like 3 language in this stone. What the hell?
scholars a crucial stepping stone in the deciphering of ancient Egyptian scripts, paving the way for our modern-day understanding of ancient Egyptian culture. ARKNIGHTS' Rosetta Stone came in the form of ARKNIGHTS Enfield.
Oh, oh. Interesting. So they use Enfield to decipher it. When was this? 1 year ago. Okay, that's long before.
Specifically with the release of its technical test in early 2024. Within the menu of the game, referred to as the Enfield database system, the guide section containing the tutorials for the game features screenshots of the game, yet everything was written in sarcasm. This would be the ARKNIGHTS community's Rosetta Stone. Using the parallel English text in place for the regular game UI, members of the community were able to piece together a complete sarcasm alphabet, as well as a set of numbers.
Okay. Interesting. So these numbers. So, but what about the yes and no thing? The fact that the yes is, what is it? Y E or S. Yeah, it doesn't really match the thing that we saw from what is that? And from Amiya's scene.
And some non-alphanumeric
I guess
characters.
I guess just what I call O and X, I guess. So it's not really means yes and no.
The sarcasm language can be directly translated to the Latin alphabet, and the numeric characters can be translated into the Arabic numerals. With a translation that we're quite confident in, we can take a look at the examples of sarcasm that we previously weren't sure about their translation. Starting with Amiya's class conversion, the 7 symbols that are initially displayed can be translated into wake up ?
Wake up?
The second string of sarcasm that pops up after her conversion is a slight bit more tricky, as the characters are actually flipped. However, if you rotate just the letter characters a complete 180 degrees, you will get the correct translations of the letters from left to right.
Okay.
Courage restored. Both of these letters from left to right. Courage restored.
Courage restored.
Both of these translations within the context of the situation they're used in make sense, and is why we can feel quite confident in the current model of sarcasm translation. More recently, the release of the Integrated Strategies 5 on the Chinese server gave us more insight on the sarcasm language, including its written language. The different materials from IS.
The fact that it is literally the IS where Amiya, that's the ending where Amiya becomes, destroy the world.
5 gave us the knowledge of 3 additional characters in the sarcasm alphabet. The C charon, the G charon, and the S charon, as well as their representations in sarcasm script. Yet, despite how confident we are in our translation, there are examples of sarcasm that when we try and apply this translation to them, they result in text that we don't understand. For instance, during the second ARG campaign for ARKNIGHTS in 2021, there was an image that contained sarcasm characters that were rotated in different orientations. When the characters are matched with our model, the characters spell out Latin characters that don't translate into anything understandable. Furthermore, there are translations within ARKNIGHTS Enfield that similarly result in text that we do not understand, such as within the character selection menu and in Enfield Industries' contract paper that was shown in one of the trailers for the games. These examples of text that translate into strings of characters we don't understand muddle the idea of whether we fully understand the sarcasm language. So, with the examples of inconsistency in the translation of sarcasm in some examples, does that mean that we can't translate sarcasm definitively?
At this point, I think they just put random symbols.
It could be said that the examples of inconsistency within the translations could be attributed to the letters being run through a code or cipher to add an
Oh.
additional level of secrecy, or that the string of letters are a unique letter codes that just use the sarcasm characters. Or perhaps there are no deeper meaning within them and they're
Hmm.
just used as intriguing graphical elements.
Hmm.
I think the answer to the question of can we translate sarcasm is that while we have a pretty good understanding of the language, our understanding is always subject to change as we get to uncover more and more about the sarcasm language. The work to understand the language of sarcasm is ongoing, and perhaps there will be more revelations that can provide us meaningful
Is there
explanations
an update for
for the
this?
sarcasm text in these examples
How
that
long
we
is this?
previously couldn't translate. But as much as the discussion of sarcasm centers around translating the language into something that us humans can understand, I want to turn some attention to the aspect that distinguishes sarcasm from many other fictional languages, especially those found in other gachas:
Okay.
the appearance of the characters. In the digital age, where we are able to see and write with millions of different fonts in different styles, I think many overlook how humanity has been putting language into different visual mediums thousands of years before the advent of high resolution digital displays. The methods of writing humans have adopted throughout the ages often shape how their script will appear.
Hmm.
Sometimes these scripts looked a certain way because how the language communicated its meanings. Sometimes it was because of the physical limitations of the media that were used, and sometimes it's because of the artistic flares that we add for visual appeal. One of the earliest forms of human writing came in the form of cuneiform, a writing system originating from Mesopotamia.
Ooh,
Unlike how many
Mesopotamia.
of our languages use a pointed tipped pen, brush, or stylus strokes to write
Oh.
out a script, modern forms of cuneiform used a wedge-shaped reed stylus that is pressed into a clay tablet to leave an impression
Ooh.
of the character. Through the
Interesting.
writer's ability to manipulate the orientation of the reed stylus, the result is the shape of modern cuneiform script, uniquely geometric and uniform. Blackletter, also referred to as Gothic script, similarly has
Context
the
script.
visual appearance of its script influenced by the physical characteristics of its writing utensil.
Hmm.
Writers used a flat-tipped pen or quill that, combined with a set of strokes, can create characters without needing to constantly lift up and rotate the orientation of the pen. What resulted is the distinct blocky appearance interposed with the extremely thin lines of Blackletter's characters.
Hmm. Interesting.
And I can't forget to mention one of
I feel like learning about language more than than the language of Arknights actually interesting.
the most notable examples of how the tools define the look of the characters: East Asian calligraphy. Calligraphers are able to
What
manipulate how
about
their brushes leave the
Arab
ink on the paper by
calligraphy?
varying the pressure, direction of travel, and how the brush is lifted off the paper. The result? Elegant flowing strokes of varying thicknesses, with terminals that can be rounded, tapered, or sharp. The appearance of the script can also be influenced by other physical factors aside from the writing utensils themselves. For many Brahmic scripts of Southeast
Arabic.
Asia, the
Oh,
primary media for a written script were dried palm leaves. A
oh, dry
scribe
palm
would take a
leaves.
knife pen and inscribe grooves of the characters on the palm leaf, after which ink would be applied and flow into the grooves, while the ink on the surface of the palm leaf would be wiped off, revealing the script.
Hmm,
Scribes
interesting.
had to be careful not to tear the leaves while inscribing the characters, and thus adopted more rounded character appearances, as angular characters would be more prone to damaging the leaf. Even the adoption of printing would lead to script being dictated by the physical properties of the medium. Chinese woodblock printers, while developing a standardized typeface for their typepieces, carved out the characters with the wood grain running horizontally. This meant that it was much easier to carve out strokes running horizontally without them breaking, while carving out vertical strokes was more difficult, resulting in the distinct look of Songti/Mingti with its thin horizontal strokes and thick vertical strokes.
Hmm.
So we've seen that the look of characters is impacted by the tools used to write them and the medium used to print or display them. When looking at the examples of other languages within Gacha, we can see that many of them emulate the strokes of handwritten scripts fitting with old, ancient human scripts. Yet, when we look at Sarkaz, we see many details about the appearance of the Sarkaz script that presents a very different story.
Very blocky.
By far, the most distinct aspect of Sarkaz is how geometric it is. The script is composed entirely of polygons, with the only curves coming from circles. The majority of characters, such as A, D, J, L, M, U, W, and Z, are combinations of simple geometric shapes such as triangles, circles, trapezoids, parallelograms, and rectangles, oriented in different ways. Other characters, such as Q, S, T, and the numeric symbol for 1, are unique single polygon shapes. Another important observation of the characters is that they are all filled in rather than being outlines of strokes from conventional pen, brushes, or styluses. This could perhaps support a theory that these shapes were not written per se, but rather imprinted by geometric shape stamps. However, I think there's evidence that points to Sarkaz not being developed as a script intended to be quote-unquote handwritten at all, but rather a script developed for display in a completely different medium entirely. One point that we haven't touched on yet is that since Sarkaz shares similarities with the Latin alphabet, are there any variations in the letter case, i.e. do lowercase/uppercase letters exist for Sarkaz?
I don't know.
As the writing of this script, we have yet to see any examples of varied Sarkaz script for uppercase or lowercase characters. All instances of Sarkaz feature Sarkaz characters that are consistently sized with each other. So what about the examples of Sarkaz script being used? Can we learn anything from those to discern anything? Ironically, I think it's what the script hasn't been used with that points to the idea that Sarkaz was not meant to be handwritten at all. There yet to have been any examples of Sarkaz script being used on documents, literature, or other long-form writings. Examples where there are a lot of text and the text is smaller, demanding ease of writing and legibility. The Sarkaz script doesn't particularly fit these two requirements. If we were to write out some of the Sarkaz characters with strokes, we would see how many times one would have to stop their stroke to change direction, or take their pen off the paper to move over and start a new set of strokes. Furthermore, there are many characters that have small features such as empty space between the shapes or small cuts. When we look at these characters in a smaller font size, we can see that they can lose these features, detrimental to the legibility of these characters. So since Sarkaz seems like a script not developed out of a handwritten script, how did Sarkaz develop?
Yeah.
There was the previously mentioned theory of the characters being stamped onto the writing mediums. However, there is
It also means that they need a lot of stamps then.
a recent piece of evidence that may point to another theory.
Okay.
The character Logos.
Oh.
Logos is a caster who uses magical incantations that are written in Sarkaz.
Oh.
As we see in his character artwork and his effects during gameplay, Sarkaz characters appear to float around him and are applied to enemies when they're hit by Logos' attacks.
Oh, that's interesting.
This is where the theory of Sarkaz as a display language comes in. Rather than visualizing the Sarkaz language through physical means of writing, the Sarkaz language was first manifested through non-physical means by the magical powers possessed by those who understood the Sarkaz language. This could perhaps help explain why the Sarkaz language is so geometric and simplistic. From a graphics perspective, having a bank of common shapes that make up the majority of characters, primarily having those straight lines for those characters, and using circles which have much simpler arcs, all make it easier for something like a computer to render the vast amount of shapes that would be associated with a language. If the process of conjuring these visual representations of the language was similarly taxing on an individual's powers as they would be with the computer, then such could support why the language took on such simplistic geometric forms. So, without any evidence of alternate typefaces for Sarkaz, what would a possible alternate typeface for Sarkaz look like? Perhaps one place to start is by making a version of Sarkaz characters with serifs. But
Serifs.
what is a serif typeface in the first place?
Oh, serif.
Let's take a brief look at what the serif is and its origins. Serifs are wedge-like extrusions at the end of a character's stroke. They can be extruded from either one or both sides of the stroke.
Sans serif and everything.
The origins of the serif is surprisingly a controversial discussion.
Oh, what,
While
really?
most agree on the origin of the serif being from the period of classical antiquity in the Greco-Roman world, the actual purpose of the serif has been a major point of contention.
Why?
Many people have speculated the origin of the serif to be based on the practical reasons with regards to the medium most serif letters were found on, stone inscriptions. One theory presents serifs originally being a way for the stonecutters to mark stopping lines for their cuts. Over time, these marks would be incorporated as part of the letter's visual appearance. Another theory lists serifs as being a product after most of the letter has been inscribed into the stone, being used to clean up the ends of the letter and improve the visual appearance. Edward M. Kadich, in his book The Origin of the Serif, presents a theory independent of the physical aspects of the inscribing of the letters into stone. Instead of serifs being a product of the stone cutting process, he proposes that serifs were actually part of Roman calligraphy strokes of the letters when they were being marked onto the stone. Stonecutters would then follow these painted marks while inscribing, which included the flowing extensions natural to the brush that would go on to become the serifs. Whatever the origin of the serif may be, what we know for sure is that the serif has become a staple of Western typography throughout history. Given that its ubiquity lies within media that has only just been phased out, mostly in the past century, serif typefaces have often been associated with antiquity and historical media. So when talking about the Sarkaz alphabet, would it be possible to make a serif font for it? Well, the following word you're about to hear is from the talented graphic designer Lens, who has graciously allowed me to share his work process while creating his version of a Sarkaz serif font. Unfortunately, because the Sarkaz script is solely comprised of enclosed shapes, the closest thing that we might be able to achieve are modulated symbols, something that serif fonts use for symbols such as delta.
Oh, that's kind of interesting.
However, what we want to achieve is something similar to traditional Latin serifs as a whole. Lens states that there is an interesting path brush which, when applied to the Sarkaz letters, takes the horizontal sides and expands them, while removing the vertical lines directly.
Interesting.
Although this might be a bit brute forcing in his mind, it's still recognizable as the original letter, and can be simply interpreted as an alternate writing script. Thus, if we gave the letter the pointed ends and repeat it for every letter of the alphabet, then we'll end up with a serif version for Sarkaz, which we can call Sarkaz serif.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
The actual
What's that?
serifs themselves are based on the serifs from the typeface Sinzel, which Lens chose because Sinzel was the only English font that appeared in IS5, aka the roguelike game mode that was set in Kadzil, the Sarkaz's homeland. If we put the Sinzel letter and the Sarkaz serif letter side by side, then we can see that the pointed ends are exactly the same. However, the Sarkaz serifs are not modulated like Sinzel's. Now, let's compare Sarkaz with Sarkaz serif side by side. Here is the most common.
Okay, this looks so clean. What the heck? This actually looks so clean here.
Commonly seen English language panagram. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, which, for your information, that means that this phrase contains all the letters within the English alphabet, written in Sarkaz and Sarkaz serif, respectively. But what about a sentence in actual Sarkaz? Here it uses a sentence, pardon my Sarkaz, dator lucibus ad linguam nostram, which roughly translates to, light giveth birth of language ours.
Means? What is it? What do you
So
mean?
what can we use Sarkaz serif for?
Like, wait, is this Latin then? Because he did say that it is the closest to Latin.
Well, in fact, there are plenty of use cases for Sarkaz serif, as having just one different font option opens up many possibilities. For example, Lens created this example of a newspaper with Sarkaz serif paired alongside regular Sarkaz. If you wish, you may attempt to decipher the article that he created,
Oh
but
my god, that's a
its
lot.
contents will be in Latin. As a hint,
It's in
the
Latin. Oh,
topic of the
okay.
article discusses the lies of the sancta.
Lies of the Center. Oh, interesting.
I feel that many of us, myself included, tend to always forget just how much of an impact language has on our livelihoods,
True.
beyond the scope of its practical purposes for communication. It's quite frankly incredible
The,
what us humans have
the
been able to
symbol.
achieve over millennia, with just the use of elegant ways of communicating vast amounts of complex information through sounds and strokes of ink.
Yeah, kind of
For those
insane.
of us who are alive now, language is a means to feel more connected, not just with those who we speak the same tongue with, but also with those who speak or write in a different language. The languages that we don't know are a mystery to us, but that's
True.
exactly why we seek to understand them. And through that process of learning to understand another language, the language inadvertently connects us with others as we learn how to understand each other. And for those who were part of past generations, language is the means for their legacies to continue.
True.
For as long as we understand the language they spoke centuries ago, we will still be able to recount their stories. And for those words that we may have forgotten over time, we will find a way to rediscover lost languages to read their stories.
Yeah, very
So
inspiring.
as the history language has preserved can be retold through academic papers, folk stories, and silly anime games.
The anime games.
Once again, a huge thank you goes out to Lens, who not only gave me the initial idea for this video project, but also graciously allowed me to discuss about their Sark has Serif project. And thank you very much to everyone who watched the video. See you next time.
Interesting video actually. Like okay. Like damn, very inspiring thought about the importance of language. Very interesting. It feels like I'm hearing an essay or a presentation, the importance of language in our world. And I have yeah, and I have written what I call I have written things like this when it comes to language. Because language is important for culture to preserving culture, and it's kind of like the symbol or the the symbol of preservation for a culture. Like every like language is kind of gives like a what you call like yeah like I said, it is the symbol of culture. Like it contains culture that we probably don't know of, and it's good to see that he explains more about about other language as well. Like this one, it was interesting to see about the Mesopotamia way of writing. Interesting, and it's good. It's easy to see that each like every what I call every language has it depends on what surface they are trying to write, and also what I call what item they are trying to written. And it's good to see that he kind of applies this concept with sarkas, saying that the way sarkas do like what I call written the language is it's like projection. They project that language instead of what I call instead of written it. So yeah, very interesting. And I don't think we have ever seen this kind of language in ARKNIGHTS from in a what you call it, in a physical sense. It's always related to system like, which is very understandable because yeah, in system you can project things like that. Very interesting. Like I wonder if there's an update about this language, since because he did say that some of the language is unable to be translated. So maybe there is a different vocabulary for this language, or maybe they never actually think about it. I don't know. Like I don't like when I think about gacha game doing these things like this, or any game in general. I doubt they will actually. I doubt they will give any deeper reasons of why things are like this, because that's how I see games and theory are. Like sometimes the theories are very good, but sometimes I don't believe it just because I doubt they have this level of thinking whenever they written the story, that or whenever they do the world building. That's what I just think. Like I feel like the average person, especially for a game, but like maybe a game, if they actually pay a lot to just develop a very interesting world building, maybe they actually have actually explained This type of language, like the only time where I see and language and written is being our call fictional language is being portrayed in stories in a very proper way with all the vocabulary and everything is Mushoku Tensei. Mushoku Tensei is the only time where I just astonished the way they build the world. Like the language is different, the vocabulary is different, and they actually do the sound of how to do the language, which is one of the most interesting thing to see. Like yeah, like I think in terms of in terms of representation of the what I call fictional language, I don't think anyone can defeat can what I call can be compared to Mushoku Tensei when it comes to incredible representation of fictional language, because the anime did a really great job in not only written all the what I call what I call all the syllables and words in everything, and also actually sounding the language. Like generally, I am impressed with how dedicated the Mushoku Tensei team of anime team is. So yeah, interesting. I don't actually know if Genshin has it actually. Like Genshin probably doesn't have it like for now. Like I just don't know. Maybe they just let in the same as them. Like yeah, I don't like it's my first time seeing what I call a video talking about language in for a gacha game. So I don't know if Genshin has it or not. So yeah, interesting video. Very knowledgeable video. So yeah, I think that's all from me. Thank you for watching. Please enjoy, please subscribe, and please share the video to see more of my content. And please check this video in the link in the description below. And yeah, peace out.